Welcome to CitySpace. My name's Amy McDonald. I'm the director of this joint. How many people, this is your first time here? I thought so, for Jennette McCurdy. We are so excited to have her with us this evening, as I know this crowd is as well. It's her only appearance in Boston. Her memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died, has just sold 1 million copies today. And it's topped the New York Times bestseller list for 11 weeks. And it's not surprising why. How many people have read it already? Wow! Okay. Well, as you know, it's poignant and yet it's funny. It's shocking and yet it's loving. And it's heartbreakingly honest and at the same time beautifully written. I cannot imagine a more ideal interlocutor for Jennette tonight than our own Robin Young, co-host of Here and Now, who is empathic and smart and warm and loves this book. One housekeeping note that I think you were all told at registration, signed copies of your book will be at registration. You can pick it up on the way out after the conversation. With no further ado, take it away, Robin.
Hello.
Hello. Now I have to put a thing in my ear, which, how is everybody? Kind of exciting, isn't it? Now, we didn't see, how many have read the book? Excellent, there will be quizzes.
Thank you, guys.
There will be quizzes, because if you hadn't, I was going to say there will also be spoilers, but the title kind of gives it away. And how many have thought of writing a memoir?
Woo.
And now are you thinking, either maybe you're inspired or maybe you're like me and you're thinking, well, no, because of this. Why bother? Because it's so good. It's just so good. And this is so beautifully written and so heartbreaking, even more so because early on we learned how Jennette wanted to be a writer. She wrote a screenplay. How old were you?
10.
10?
I recently found it. I was cleaning up the garage with my brother and found it.
I was going to ask, because maybe we ultimately do see it, but at that time when she was 10 and so proud of this screenplay, her mom told her, well, writers get fat, you know. And that was that.
And dress frumpy. My mom always thought that writers had horrible style.
And since
I clearly don't.
Yeah. And since she desperately wanted to keep her mom happy, she had to stay small and be an actress. When her mom does succumb to cancer, we who thought maybe this was an inappropriate title are thinking differently. And we soon realize that it doesn't at all, her mom's death doesn't at all liberate Jennette, because that's just the first half of the book. Off we go to the second, the bulimia. Then there's a terrible secret that her mom kept from her, a beloved boyfriend who announces he is Jesus Christ and turns out to have schizophrenia. The Atlantic has called this book a triumph of the confessional genre. So Jennette McCurdy, please welcome again from me.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you so much, everybody. I love your puffer jacket. It's so cute.
Oh, now you just died. You just died. You're 2 when your mom first has cancer. She's, I think, 35.
Yeah.
Very young. You write with the memory of a child what the house felt like from then on. Can you recall that?
Yeah, I write that it felt like a held breath. My mom she was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic ductal carcinoma. I was well acquainted with that term from a very early age. I didn't really know what it meant, but I knew, okay, it's like, I guess breast cancer is what I eventually discovered. And she was diagnosed with that when I was 2, and it was stage 4. The doctors told her she only had 6 months to live. She did survive 18 years. She was in remission until it then, or 16 years until it recurred again.
Well, I want to go back to the house and everyone, a held breath, because shame and embarrassment is baked into you before you even are pushed to be an actress from that house, because your mom's a hoarder. She and your dad, her parents, her grandparents, your brothers, all crammed in. There's never enough money. You had to sleep on what? What were those things?
Me and my brother slept on mats. Like, they were from Costco. It's like kids' gymnastics mats. You know, they like fold out into 3 little segments, and the kids like tumble on them. Only we weren't tumbling, we were sleeping on them because there was no space for beds. My mom was a hoarder, you know, floor to ceiling. Our house was just filled with junk and clutter and things that my mom could not let go of.
Right. And she also can't let go of, and she also can't let go of what she thinks. We're going to be rerunning some of this on the radio, and so I'm making myself sound better. That's what's happening there. She also can't let go of what she thinks is her destiny, to be an actress, because she tells you, my parents didn't let me, and I want to make sure you will be one.
Yes.
What child could say no?
Right. My mom was, she was very tiny. She was 4'11", just super petite, but very intimidating. Like, to this day, the most intimidating person I've ever met. She could just dominate a room, any room she walked into, just command the attention and energy. And it didn't hurt that she could be very charming, had a captivating presence. But so she turned to me when I was 6 and said, she'd always been sharing these long-winded stories of how she wanted to be an actress. Her parents wouldn't let her. She told me she dated Chris Knight, who played Peter Brady in The Brady Bunch, which I have yet to find out if that is true. I suspect it was not. But she then said that she wanted me to be an actress because her parents would never let her be one, so she wanted me to be one.
Yeah, well, and you want to make your mom happy, and so
exactly
off you go. And she could be charming.
Yeah.
For instance, when selling you at auditions, standing to the side, acting out how she thought you should be. It's kind of a cliche,
Sure,
of
yeah,
stage,
for sure.
But there she was.
I think cliches get to be cliches for reasons, absolutely. Yeah. But my mom also, she, like, as charming as she was, I don't think she knew how to, like, get me to be charming for auditions. Everything that she had me do was, like, very over-performative. Like, whatever she would tell me to do, the casting director would then tell me to do the opposite of. She'd tell me to do, like, big hands for, like, a cello jiggler's audition. Or there was, like, a laugh that I was supposed to do at an early audition, and she was like, do a nose wrinkle and go, hee. And I did that, and it sounded terrible, because it's not how I sound.
Yeah. Well, but still, she's the one guiding your career in just about every way. And in addition to being charming, she could also be mercurial, explosive. Your dad works 2 jobs, Home Depot, Hollywood Video, but she just mocks and disparages him. To you, her best friend, I mean, blows up at him, comes at him with a knife. I mean, it's funny, we had Chelsea Manning here on Monday, and she had some of the same backstory and upbringing. I feel like I'm hearing way too much about this, but when these things happened, when she was so violent and so explosive, what did you see your job as?
Regulating her emotions. I felt like my job from a very early age, and I feel like this is unfortunately common for children that grow up in abusive and chaotic and dysfunctional homes. I felt like, nobody else in my family can read mom the same way. I can see when she's about to blow. I can see when she kind of squints a certain way at dad, and that means 2 hours from now, shit's gonna hit the fan. She's gonna chase him with a knife. And I feel like I could predict her emotions a lot better than others and just study them a lot more than anybody around me. So I felt like, well, nobody else is gonna be able to keep her regulated. I didn't know that term at the time, but that's what I was doing. And so I felt like it was my job to keep her emotionally regulated.
Plus, you loved her.
Yeah.
And again, you wanted her to be her best. And, she homeschools you, further sealing this bubble that you're in with her. How did you feel as you got deeper into child acting?
I hated it. I really hated it. I felt uncomfortable, a lot of discomfort, and a lot of, like, I would pee like 15 times before I'd go in for an audition. I'd cross my name out and re-sign it in because I would just dread going in. And then, I would see some other kids who just seemed like born performers. They'd like be all but tap dance in and be like, hello, to the casting director. And I'm like, okay, that's totally not me. I'd, be like, my lips would be shaking. I'd be a nervous wreck. They'd have me just slate, which is saying your name and your age. And I'd be like, I'm Jennette McCurdy. I'm 9 years old. Like, I was not a natural fit at all.
It's breaking my heart. And, I'm thinking, too, of when you said you crossed your name out on the sign-in sheet. You were, I don't know if you still are, a Mormon.
No, I'm not anymore, but I was.
You were a Mormon, and you loved going to the wards every Sunday. It just was such an escape for you, and she stopped going, so you stopped going to this wonderful refuge. But at some point, you think the Holy Ghost is speaking to you and telling you to do things like what?
Yeah, so when I was little, in the Mormon church, they tell you that you get this gift of the Holy Ghost when you're 8 years old. You don't have it beforehand. You're 7.5, no Holy Ghost. 7 3/4, no Holy Ghost. 8 years old, you got him. So on my 8th birthday, I'm like, okay, the Holy Ghost is gonna start like talking to me. We're gonna have this great relationship, and I like didn't hear him for a while until I did start to hear him, and he would tell me to do these ritualistic behaviors, like twirl around or like touch doorknobs 5 times and like lock them, then relock them, lock them, then relock them before not crossing, not stepping on cracks in the kitchen tiles, things like that. So I thought like, oh my God, he's talking to me. Well, I thought, oh my gosh, because I was Mormon, I didn't think in God. And I think, oh my gosh, he's helping me. He's doing all these things for me. And then, of course, now I realize that was the pounding voice of mental illness. But at the time, I thought it was the Holy Ghost.
A little obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yes,
there.
OCD. It ran in my family.
By the way, someone's asking, and bring your questions on. Mine count more. But, no, do bring them to Slido. But when someone asks, have you ever talked to your brothers? How different were their experiences? Because obviously your mother was so focused on you.
Right. I have just a great relationship with my 3 older brothers, Marcus, Dustin, and Scotty. We all got together recently, actually. It's so nice to get everybody in the same space because we all kind of live in different places. But I would say talking with them after our mom's death was really kind of instrumental in getting to where I got with the complicated feelings toward the abuse, because I think, as is often the case in families of dysfunction, it's not talked about. You can't talk about it with your siblings because the parents are going to fly off the handle. So you don't know what's going to happen if you can't dare speak of any of the truth that's happening. You'll be gaslit or threatened to be put up for adoption, which my mom often did if anybody challenged her. So with my brothers and I, once our mom died, we were kind of able to start saying like, hey, remember that? What about that? That was crazy, right? That was intense. That was not okay. And it was a really validating experience to be able to talk with them all about these things that we had all lived together but had just been going through silently.
Well, I'm thinking of the time that you become the person who can cry on cue, and that's really valuable. But there's one day when you just don't want to be Emily, I think it was, in a part that you had, and your mother loses it, and she's driving the car. It was just frightening.
Yeah, that was often the situation. I mean, also our car itself was frightening. It was a Ford Windstar. It was like copper color, like it was the color of skin, like the most hideous color. It was just like not cute. But so my mom would drive this Ford Windstar. She'd be on the freeway and she'd be yelling, like we had to take usually like 3 to 4 freeways to get home. We were an hour and a half away. So she'd be on the 101 and she'd be like, can I merge? Can I get on the 110? I'd be like, yeah, Mom, go for it. She'd be like, and then like cars are like, flipping her off, pissed at her. And she would just be like, why'd you let me get over, Net? And it's always, my fault or whatever, just for her not being able to merge.
I'm thinking of the time you said to her, and you're in the back seat, still on your booster seat, even though you were older, that you said, I just don't want to do this part. And she just lost it and started pounding on the steering wheel. And I'm thinking, hold on to the steering wheel.
Yes.
And screaming and crying. I mean, the threat was always, I'm going to do something to myself, or I'm going to have a breakdown if you don't do this.
Right. And I think the difficult thing, and actually I would even say that maybe the funny thing about being a child is you don't realize that the environment that you're in is abusive or dysfunctional. So you just think like, oh, it's my job to get Mom off the freeway safe. Better be really on top of it this time, because you don't want either her to fly off the handle or something dangerous to happen. And the danger is imminent when you hear, when the car's like on the shoulder of the freeway and your mom's screaming at you and the BMWs are pissed.
Yeah. So I'll do the part.
Right.
I'll be the actress. And then you start growing up. You're sharing a celebratory ice cream one day after something good happened, and you want Oreo ice cream, and your mom almost collapses again because you always used to order coconut. That means you're growing up, and you can't do that, so you go back to the coconut. And then there's the time you start to feel your body change. You ask her how to stop the boobies. And your mom says to you, her best friend, she shares a secret with you, that there is a way.
Yes, she tells me, initially I thought that I had cancer because of my mom's cancer, so I felt what was a breast developing. I felt a little hardness in the nipple, and I went to my mom and said, oh no, what is this? And she told me, that I in fact did not have cancer, that I was just getting boobies. I said, well, is there anything I can do to stop the boobies from coming in? I knew she wanted me to stay young. I knew that was helpful for acting purposes. They like to hire kids who can play younger age than they actually are. And she said, yeah, there is this thing. It's called calorie restriction. And that was, it was the literal day that she taught me calorie restriction. It's like crystal clear in my mind. And then it very much became this thing that we did together, that we were like partners in crime, doing, I describe it in the book as like the Freaky Friday, or was it Freaky Friday? No, it's Parent Trap, where they're like doing the little jive and they're like shaking and doing the little hand. It felt like that, but it's like calorie restriction. Like it felt like a fun thing when we were little. It felt like a thing my mom was helping me out with. It felt like a thing that she was doing for my benefit. And I really, even as I started to kind of question that, I just suppressed all of the doubts and the uncertainties about where her behavior was coming from, what her motivations were, because I felt like I needed to, preserve the idea of her helping me and being my best friend.
Right. And what were some of the things you did? Weighing yourself?
She would measure my thighs with measuring tape. I would weigh myself 5 times a day. I was like OCD and eating disorder comorbidity example, quintessential comorbidity. And she would teach me, to start drinking decaf coffee, black, because it's helpful for your metabolism. It's a diuretic.
Salads with spray dressing, lettuce with spray dressing. That
Yes,
would be
I didn't talk about this in the book. There were quite a few vignettes that I wound up cutting just for expediency and making sure the story stayed on track. But I remember once walking through a Ralph's with my mom, and we were like picking out which dressing spray we were going to go with. And the reason we did it was because it was like 5 calories for however many sprays. And she was like, should we do this spray or that spray? And someone walks past and she's like, you don't want the spray. You want to get the fun ones. Get like the regular ranch dressing. And my mom was like, we're not doing ranch. She got so mad at the woman. It was like venomous. But I remember the woman, she like looked at me and she gave me this look that you just, I didn't know how to put it together. I didn't know how to make sense of that look, because when you're little, you don't. I don't think you can quite get there, but I just didn't forget it because it was so weighted and so loaded, and I knew there was such a look of kind of compassion in that woman, is now what I recognize it as, and a look of like, God, I hope it's okay over there.
Yeah, and it wasn't.
And it wasn't.
I mean, there's so much more. We haven't even gotten to iCarly yet, but you've had time, and it's going to take probably even more time. But there is a thing called Munchausen by proxy.
Yeah, when I see shows about Munchausen by proxy, I'm like, relatable, which should not be the reaction.
Yeah, it's mothers who actually make their children sick.
Right, right.
So they get attention.
Yes.
In this case, it's kind of twisted, because
she was like, I can get both. I can be sick, and she can want to be with me all the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And how do you? I mean, just to take a pause here to, she restricted the calories because she had overheard her mom, who's your grandma, who also turns out to be pretty mean and nasty. She heard your grandma say that she would get fat when she was a kid. So she's got some marionette strings being pulled herself. What do you think it was? Do you think your mom was sick? Was she a narcissist? Was she mean? What do you think it was?
I've told 3 separate therapists just sort of anecdotes of my experiences with my mom, and they have said that all 3 of them have said that they think it's some combination of, or maybe all of the above, of narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and bipolar disorder. And that the most difficult of those to treat is narcissistic personality disorder, because I guess narcissists just won't, they'll think, I don't have a problem. There's nothing I need to work on. I'm not going to do that, which was something I would literally hear my mom say, every other day when she would get in one of those really intense fights. My dad or my grandfather would say, Deb, you need help. Deb, you got to see somebody. And she would say, I don't need help. You need help. That was always her.
And I'm going to stab you.
Back. What's that?
And I'm going to stab you with a kitchen knife.
Right. Both at once.
Yeah. Well, but there was a bit of a reprieve, because this is all happening while your mom is on the phone fending off bill collectors. And you get the part for iCarly.
Yes.
You're thinking what at that moment, Sam?
Mom's going to be happy. Mom's dream finally came true. Oh my God. She's not going to have to worry anymore.
Was there any joy for you?
I remember, I mean, I felt thrilled because I knew that what it would do for her. It really, truly, my joy was so just connected to her that it was like we were so codependent. I didn't know how to separate that from myself or have a thing that felt like I wasn't able to think, oh, I don't want this, but it was just like, well, she wants this, so that's great. You know,
Yeah.
It felt very my emotions felt my joy felt very shoehorned.
Yeah. Well, and there were wonderful parts. I mean, your co-star,
Yes.
Miranda, wonderful friendship. As much of a friendship as you can have with someone that you're not telling anything to.
Right.
You're paying the family bills, finally, you know. But then some would say fame, but that wasn't a good part for you.
Right. And I feel like it's so, we hear a lot of like, boo-hoo fame. Like it's an easy thing to sort of romanticize the dark side of it. And I really tried not to do that because I think there's nothing romantic about the dark side of it. I think it's, like, frankly, I think it's not appropriate for children or adolescents. I think until somebody's psychologically developed, they should not be allowed to go anywhere near Hollywood. I think it's just, you don't have the tools. You don't have the tools. You don't know how to set boundaries. You don't know that everybody around you is saying, I'm your this, I'm your that. Oh, I'm your best friend. Oh, I'm your manager. Oh, it's like, you're all making money off of a child. Like that, the kid, you cannot understand that as a child. Or I couldn't. Maybe some kids can.
Well, and what a dysfunctional set. You write about the person you call the creator.
Yes.
Dan Schneider.
The creator.
The creator. Of iCarly. There was an investigation, and it found that he had been, abusive, verbally abusive to people. At one point, he had to, run the show from a cave somewhere, across the sound studio, so he wouldn't come into contact with anyone. Describe what you saw on the set. I mean, talk about, you have your own unique story, but child acting needs some paying attention to.
Yes, I think absolutely. I was in a lot of sort of toxic and chaotic, dysfunctional environments that I didn't recognize as such because I'd been used to that at home. So in a lot of the behavior I was seeing seemed normal or seemed like familiar to me. Yeah. So I wasn't really able to identify it as being wildly dysfunctional until much later.
Yeah. Well, wildly dysfunctional. That's how your relationship with your mom is getting because you're growing up without a clue. I mean, you've been in this bubble with your mom. Things happen. You start dating a much older guy. I think he's 32, you're 18. Shame on him. Is Joe his real name, I hope?
Joe is not his real name.
Okay, well, shame on the guy formerly known as Joe. Because he's 32, you're 18. You don't even know what you're doing. Things come out of body parts you don't even know, right? That's abuse.
I didn't know what cum was.
How am I going to get this on NPR? But I just found that was very sad, to me. Why are we telling young people things, and what is this guy? But anyway, you're feeling a natural teenage desire, as any teenager feels, to pull away from your mom. In this case, it's to try to pull away from this dysfunctional relationship. Her cancer comes back.
Yeah.
You get your own apartment, but she moves in, sleeping in the bed with you, clinging to you all night. Then she goes from cloying to vicious. You're trying to carry on this relationship with Joe, bad Joe. And at one point you lie. You say you're going to Miranda's. Your mother figures it out. She is vicious to you.
Yeah.
And you do go to Hawaii with Joe, and the paparazzis get a picture. She writes you, I mean, just one of the most vicious emails. I don't even know how you even, talked about it in the book. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, it was one of many emails that she would send if she had sort of gotten a sniff of my behavior that she didn't approve of. In the email, she called me a slut, a floozy, just so many scathing things. And she was she was extremely vicious. And at the time, I didn't read it as vicious. I didn't read it as like, oh, mom's, this is abuse. I read it as like, oh my God, she's right. I've done something terrible. I'm a terrible person. I need to correct this. I need to do whatever I can to get mom back on my side and back believing in me, because I've clearly, I'm this devil child. She'd call me a devil child. She called me, everything.
Do you mind?
No, sure.
Dear Nat, I'm so disappointed in you. You used to be my perfect little angel, but now you're nothing more than a little slut, Caps. A floozy, all used up. And to think you wasted on that hideous ogre of a man. Well, I kind of agree with that. Add this to the list of things you are: liar, conniving, evil. You look pudgier, too. It's clear you're eating your guilt. And it goes on and on and on. You're this monster, an ugly monster. And then down at the bottom, P.S., send money for a new fridge. Ours broke.
Right.
I mean, that...
Also, her voice and her cadence, because I could read her emails in her cadence. I didn't recognize the humor in them, but now, like, as I was retyping that out, I recognized how funny it is that she could just go from being like, you're a slut, you're a floozy. P.S. send money for a new fridge, please, thank you. Like, that was her. She could just do these massive swings that were abusive, but also
She was extraordinary.
But there was humor.
Yeah. Well, next page, she wrote a letter to your fans. She wrote to your fan club because she's going to steal your fans now, she tells you.
Her favorite line was, I'm going to start a Vine. I'll have fans too. She loved saying that. She never started a Vine.
We are laughing. What happens to you now when you are reminded of these?
Let's see. My reaction just there was, it's slightly uncomfortable, like recalling it. But I don't get super emotional about it. If I were talking to one of my brothers who also received an email like that, I'm sure we would both be more emotional and have just have that kind of shared moment together. We both really, really experienced that side of her a lot. All of us did, but just the email specifically, we received more.
Well, she dies from the recurrence of cancer. She's in a coma. You say the one thing that you think might bring her back? That you're finally, 89 pounds?
So there's this thing that happens when, has anybody experienced somebody in a coma? Okay. I'm curious if you guys relate to this piece, but I found that in my family, everybody tried to say something that they thought would get my mom to wake up. Like everybody was saying sort of big news. Like one of my brothers was like, I'm going to move back to California soon. The other one was like, Mom, I'm going to get married. Everybody was saying their big news. And mine was, Mom, I'm finally your goal, wait for me. Like that was literally what I thought would get my mom to wake up from a coma. Yeah. Genuinely, I was 21 and I thought that's all small potatoes. This is what mom cares about. This is going to get her to wake up.
Yeah. Well, she doesn't. And again, this is not liberating for you. It's not an emancipation. That's not what that title means. And you spiral out. You're now on the show Sam and Cat, which was supposed to be Sam. It was supposed to be your spin-off.
It was supposed to be called Just Puckett.
Yeah. But
initially.
Yeah.
Okay, right? It's okay. It's a decent kids show title.
Yep. But then along
Sam
comes...
and Cat lacks creativity. Somebody had to say it.
I'm going to try to make my way through this. I told them they were playing music, and I said, do not play Ariana Grande. Don't have that up there. You had to be the good sport because she was off, making her music career, and you had to do double duty. You were supposed to direct. That was the promise of what would happen on this show. And somebody, I don't know who, didn't want you to direct, as you say. Your binging and purging is
I'm just going to grab this hair.
Oh, what's happening?
There's a hair floating. It's
My
driving me
hair?
nuts.
Thank you.
Sure.
So you are a director. We'll talk more about that. Your binging and purging is out of control, and you don't spare us. You are stuffing and then making yourself sick, chunks running down your arm, chunks all over your face. A little girl sticks an autograph book under a bathroom stall once, and you throw up on her.
I didn't throw up on her.
Yeah. her hand or
Thank
something.
God, she'd be scarred for life. But I did. Yeah, it was at Disneyland, the worst place to be like throwing up in a stall. But
And to be you, right?
Totally,
Everybody
sure,
knows you.
sure. But she stuffed the little autograph book, and it was like Mickey and Pluto with like the paw. And then she's like, will you sign this? And I was like, I used to make myself purge with my right hand, and that's also the sign that I'm right-handed. So if I had signed her thing, I would have literally gotten puke on the page. So I had to be like, I'm sorry, I can't sign right now. And I didn't want her obviously to see me like wiping vomit off my arm in the sink. So I couldn't even say like, can you wait a minute? So that was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I'm sure she went and got a signature from the Mad Hatter or something. So I'm sure it worked out.
Well, but, this happens a lot. And you tell us graphically about it a lot. Why? Why did you want it to be that graphic?
Oh, I'm so glad you're asking this. I have not really gotten a chance to speak about this element, and I feel like it's quite important, frankly, to anybody who might be currently suffering or experiencing any disordered eating or eating disorders or disordered behaviors. But it had been talked about at some point. Somebody had pitched the idea, like, should we have a trigger warning kind of in somewhere on the cover or inside the book, like somewhere? And I very, very strongly felt no, because my eating disorder therapist initially told me, he had me come up with a list of like what triggers are for me, what those look like for me, what really triggered my thought pattern that would lead to the disordered behavior. And coming up with that list was very helpful, but he told me we were going to do exposure therapy for those triggers because it's important not to avoid triggers, because essentially life is a trigger. You can't avoid those triggers. And he said sometimes the most helpful, I'm butchering it, but like sometimes the most helpful information, the best way to learn is through facing those triggers. You might learn a lot more from those triggers from sitting with that discomfort than from just turning away from them. Like it changed my life hearing that, because I think I would have just been so quick to say, oh, trigger warning, no, I'm not going to go there, I'm not going to go, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to do that. And I think I would not have recovered if I would have just constantly been avoiding trigger warnings, because life isn't, sensitive to trigger warnings. Unfortunately, life doesn't know everybody's trigger warnings all the time. So it's like you're going to try your best, and you're going to be beat upside the head when you least expect it with a trigger warning or with a trigger. And the last thing I want to do, I think, is succumb to that. So by not having by facing my triggers is really where I found recovery. So I felt it important to not include a trigger warning in the book, and to face the eating disorders as graphically as possible.
Well, let's talk more then about your therapy, because, you go to another therapist first, and you're liking her and liking it, but then the therapist suggests that your mother was abusive, and you can't go there yet. You cannot go there yet, and you quit and go full bore back into the bulimia. Your thought there, you couldn't accept it because why? Explain why. There's a great sentence I have here, but let's hear from you.
I'm sure I wrote it better than I could say it.
Try.
Well, so I was seeing this therapist, and she had suggested that my mother was abusive. And I couldn't handle that. I mean, I genuinely couldn't handle it. I quit immediately. I went home. I think I purged that night. I couldn't take her down off the pedestal that I needed her to be on, because it would mean sort of reorienting my entire life. And also my narrative, like the way that I went about the world, was the lens that I had was, my mom knows best. I don't know anything. Every decision I made was through the filter of like, what would mom want? Everything from what career I was in to what I wore, what I was or wasn't eating. Everything was, what does my mom want? And so accepting that she was abusive would mean figuring out who I was, what I wanted. That was something I wasn't ready to face.
And well, here's your line.
See, it was better.
No. It's your.
She's like, no, I was not it at all.
No. You're on it. If mom really didn't want what was best for me, that means my entire life, my entire point of view, my entire identity have been built on a false foundation. We haven't even mentioned one of the most disturbing aspects of this. There's monster, stage moms. Your mom, what you said, what you wore, your mom was dressing you, physically dressing you when you were into your teens.
Yeah.
She was showering you.
Yes.
Till you were 16. have you found out, have you been able to recover what that was about?
I've tried, excuse that weird throat sound. Did you guys hear that? Yikes, oh my God. I've tried to understand it. I questioned it a lot, sifted through it a lot in therapy, tried to figure out, how do I label this? Do I want to label this? What's going to be the most helpful to processing it as fully as I can? Do I just figuring out all of that was tremendously difficult, but I don't know still. I don't know what was driving that. She would say she was doing sort of, exams to check for cancer. It didn't seem to me that she was getting any sort of sexual pleasure from it, but it was, sexual abuse. There were things that were, I was very uncomfortable. Boundaries were violated, and I absolutely did not know how to set a boundary with her because I was conditioned to believe that boundaries were a betrayal of the person.
I wondered if it was part of her just keeping you an infant.
Sure.
A child, her baby.
Sure.
And, someone's asking a great question. With what you know now, is there something that you would say that someone else, well, no, first, is there something you would say now to your child's self in the middle of this abuse that might have helped you as a child?
It's interesting because just knowing where I was at there, it didn't feel like there was anything that I could do in that environment. But I think if I could show myself, I hate getting emotional. Fuck.
Me too.
I'm just gonna say fuck a bunch, so they have to edit it out. Fuck, 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 fuck. Okay. I would have, if I could have shown myself where I am now, I would not have believed it when I was little. I would have just screamed with joy. I would have been so thrilled. And I think I would have really had something to aim for. And I think I would have had really something to believe in. And I think I would have had a really much needed dose of hope and optimism.
I was just going to say, you would have told your child self, it's going to be okay.
Absolutely. It's going to be more than okay. I wouldn't say, my everyday isn't, I'm not just like getting through or something. I'm like, I'm thriving. I'm up here thriving.
Well, as you mentioned, you in part because, there was also alcohol. There was a whole bunch of stuff, masking stuff. It was
Yes.
all masking everything.
Yeah.
But you do get to this, sounds like terrific, eating disorder specialist. And that's also important information to get out. It's different from a therapist.
Yes.
It was work. It was workbooks. And as you said, exposure therapy, being exposed to the things that made you slipping. And that's okay.
Yes.
So, if you want to expound on that a little more, there's, for anyone who might need that information,
Yes.
it's different.
The therapist I saw, he was incredible. He specialized in eating disorders, which I also felt like was very important because I just think they're so specific in terms of the troubling behavioral patterns. And I think it really took somebody who knew and specialized in that area to be able to help me through. But he informed me that slips are going to be normal. He said to expect to have times where I binged and purged early on in recovery. And I thought, well, that's like not what I want to hear. I want to hear that I'm sitting here in therapy. Everything's going to be daisies and roses. It's all going to be easy. Give me a couple worksheets. We'll call it a day. All done. But he said, it's really important to accept that you will have slips because the most problematic aspect of a slip is when it becomes a slide. So when if I were to slip and then slip meaning binge and purge and then get really stuck in the shame of that shame is what's most likely to lead to another binge and purge. So if you can just bypass the shame, accept that it happened, show compassion to yourself and move on from it, journal on it, figure out what led to it, he said, glean as much information from every binge and purge, every slip as you can, but just don't let the slips become slides. That was another piece of transformative advice from him. It really kind of, it reframed my thinking in a way that I didn't know was possible and was very helpful.
Yeah. I have to say, in the second half of the book, you take us on this journey, and it's harrowing and applause-inducing, what you go through to get through this bulimia. But as if, that's not enough. You also find out that your mom lied to you. Again, a lot of you read the book, so your mom...
I was surprised for a second. I was like, what else is there?
Well, see, it might not even have hit you how big a deal it is to find out that your dad was not your dad.
Right.
I mean, that was a terrible secret to keep.
It was shocking. Yeah, I definitely did not expect that.
Yes?
Right.
Yes. And I just wonder, do you have a relationship with your biological dad, or?
I did. I talk about in the book a bit about meeting him and sort of confronting him for the first time, just going cold. I had checked out his website, figured out what he did, found him at his job. That's less creepy than it sounds. He was a musician, so he was doing like a show. And I went to see him there and just kind of approached him, not knowing what to expect or what he would be like. He was very lovely. And I did see him for a couple months after that. I'd say I saw him maybe once a week, and he couldn't have been more lovely. But I kind of just frankly stopped seeing him. It just got complicated. My brothers hadn't met him at the time, and it was something that I felt like, well, I didn't quite feel like I didn't feel like I fit in, and I didn't really feel like I fit in with the person that I thought was my dad. He had at that point remarried, who was my mom's best friend. I know it's hard to keep up with, but I just didn't. I didn't
That's
feel like
turned out to be your stepdad.
So Marcus, who I thought was my dad, and then Andrew was my dad. No air quotes. And then my brothers wound up being just the people that I really, consistently kind of that's my family. I mean, those are my people.
And someone's asking, how did your relationship with your mom? It's kind of a big but affect your relationships with other people, and including future boyfriends.
Codependency was a big problem, major problem, and something I still sort of actively try to just think about. I never really had codependency with friendships, which always felt interesting to me. It very much had its roots for me in romantic relationships. That's where my codependency would show, but friendships weren't at all. There wasn't the risk of codependency. I didn't feel that.
Well, that brings us to the other kind of shocker. Again, any one of these could have been a book for anyone, but someone that you think you love, he seems like a really nice guy, and he comes home one day and announces that he is Jesus Christ, and he's schizophrenic.
Yes.
That's I have that in my family. That's astonishing. It's that alone is an astonishing thing to take in.
I'm curious if the person in your family, did they also, it's fairly common, I hear, for them to think that they are sort of a figure, Jesus or...
No, there wasn't that. Okay. There's grandiosity, and I'm a member of, all the mental health organizations. It's not a secret. But there's the grandiosity mixed with the living under the BU Bridge, or it's just kind of a yeah. Are you familiar with any of? Well, first of all, just what do you learn there? What does that add to your story?
I think it really helped me to be more independent, because it truly felt like the silver lining in my life. Like, my relationship with him at the time felt like that was my silver lining. Like, I have this person. I almost said his real name. Oh my God. I'm sweating. But I felt like, thank God I have him, and thank God, he's in my life. And then, of course, him thinking that he was Jesus was completely shocking to me. And I struggled to accept that. I struggled to accept what that meant. I struggled to accept that, okay, I can't be with this person, and this is not whatever I had, envisioned it and hoped it would be, and, romanticized it to be.
Wow, that's familiar.
Right.
And that brings me back to the title, because I'm thinking of your mom, and you loved your mom, and you had to grapple with... She also thought in a way she was Jesus Christ. I mean, in a funny way. What did you mean by the title, I'm glad my mom died?
What can I say about that? I'm trying to think if there's something I can say that I haven't already said. There was never a doubt of what the title was going to be. And a lot of time I've done, quite a bit of press for the book at this point, and a question that I got a lot, almost every time was just like, that title, like as if I didn't know what I called the book. Did you think what people would say? It's like, no, I didn't. Yes, of course I did. I knew that it was going to be a divisive title. I knew that candidly, the wrong people would not want, or the people that I would want to read it would be drawn to it. The people who needed the message, the people who would be interested in hearing something complicated and messy, and I knew the right people would be drawn to it, and I knew the wrong people would be, off complaining on Twitter. Like, great.
Well, that's so healthy. Good for you. But I'm thinking too that it can be true because she's out of her misery. But it can also be ironic because you loved her and you weren't glad and you missed her, and you're trying to tell yourself that.
I would say I mean it quite literally. I mean it quite literally. I am glad that she died. I love whoever just snorted.
We're glad to. What did you just say that I didn't hear the last thing you said?
I said I loved whoever snorted, and she raised her hand.
Okay, and you own that, and that's part of your being well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this was a monstrous situation. So what happens now? Because you're very firm. You've said you're a former actress.
Yes.
What is it that you want to be that you couldn't be when you were being what your mom wanted to be?
I mean, everything that I'm wearing right now, she wouldn't have approved of or liked. She would want me to be wearing like a little dress with a skirt and little like boots and like my hair curled.
Well, wait a minute. For the radio audience that we ultimately have, it's like, how would you describe it? Like
I'm wearing platform sneakers.
Miu Miu. Or something.
I try not to say that because I feel like it's a little obnoxious.
Oh. Sorry.
No, not at all. I'm wearing pants that are like red with a blue stripe down the side. I'm wearing a blue collared shirt buttoned all the way to the top, and a blazer
Hoodie.
that's mixed with a hoodie. It's 2-in-1.
Oh, that's so great.
It's connected.
That is so great.
It's helpful, right?
That's one piece?
Yeah, it's one piece.
That is great. I have to get one of those. You're being you?
So no, I was going to say everything from what I wear to I have a complete, I was going to say food freedom, which is embarrassingly corny, and it's not like a term or a thing in the eating sort of community, but just I literally eat whatever I want, whenever I want. There's no food rules. Intuitive eating is like the proper term for it. That's something that I wouldn't know. I am in a healthy and wonderful and loving relationship that's so fulfilling. He might be here. Where is he? Is he here?
Where is he? There's Ari.
Ari.
Right over there. Oh my God. Oh my God. Rami, the whole thing. I'm sorry.
All good.
Well, you say at the book near the end, I want my life to be in my hands, not in eating disorders' hands or a casting director's or my mom's, mine. We mentioned at the beginning the screenplay at 10 years old, and you say you just found it. Are there screenplays that we can look for?
There are screenplays.
Yay!
I'm developing a feature film right now that I wrote, and I will be directing. I'm excited about that. Thank you. Oh, you guys are so nice.
A novel?
I'm working on a novel. I'm so excited. Just closed the deal. I'm working on a novel. I could not be more thrilled about it.
Wonderful.
Oh my God.
What was the screenplay that when you were 10?
Henry Road. I don't even remember whether it was like his name was Henry Road or whether Henry was like riding somewhere. I don't remember.
But it's about kids getting their parents back together?
Yeah, it was like a kid who had a single mom or dad and a girl who had a single mom or dad, and then they were like trying to get their single parents together, and my mom was like, they already did that in The Parent Trap.
And writers get fat. I hope you can feel this. Can you accept this yet? I mean, a lot of people, okay, I do this all the time. I do. And then we have to edit it out. And it's like, But, you hated being Sam. I loved Sam. And I wonder, too, if Sam was a way for you to, you were like a hot shit when you were Sam. And you beat people up and you were tough, a tough cookie. And I sometimes wondered now, reading the book, wow, maybe Sam was a place that you actually could do what you couldn't, say what you couldn't say to your mom.
Interesting.
But can you accept now that all these people here, and they love you?
Oh. I guess to that, I just want to say thank you guys so much. Like, truly, I did feel really complicated feelings toward being on a show that I know was, I'm aware of how well loved it was, and I'm grateful that it had a positive effect on a lot of people, but my experience was not a positive one. And it was painful and shameful and uncomfortable, and to have something that was that painful and shameful and uncomfortable be so validated so widely was complex. It was really, really difficult to grapple with all that. So now to feel validated and seen for who I am and for the things that I believe in and for things that I'm proud of and for messages that I genuinely hope help people heal is incredible. So thank you so much.
Keep applauding because we're not ready. No one up here is ready. Okay. Well, the books are out there. They're signed. Jennette McCurdy, I can't wait to see what you do next. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been such a fun conversation. Thank you all so much for being here. You've all been wonderful. I love you all so much. Thank you. Thank you, Snort. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Your books, as you can just get them on the way out. Another round of applause for Jennette McCurdy and Robin Young. Robin's got quite an editing job to do for her NPR piece.